Hi, Nicole here, and I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about logical fallacies. The first type of logical fallacy I'm going to talk about is ad hominem. An ad hominem argument, that's hard to say, an ad hominem argument attacks the person making the argument, ignoring the argument itself. For example, and you shouldn't vote for Jessica for class president because she is a jerk and cheated on a test. Now, this is just an attack on Jessica, and it really isn't bringing up any points about whether or not she'd make a good class president. The next type of logical fallacy is the appeal to ignorance. This type of argument assumes something is true just because it hasn't been proven false. So, for example, scientists have not found any concrete evidence of aliens visiting Earth. Therefore, anyone who claims to have seen a UFO must be hallucinating. Just because we haven't found any concrete evidence of aliens doesn't mean there aren't aliens. And that's the appeal to ignorance. The next logical fallacy we're going to talk about is the appeal to authority. In the appeal to authority, the validity of a claim is accepted based on an authority of an expert who is not necessarily an expert in that field. So, for example, my music teacher says that eggs are not a healthy food. Well, your music teacher isn't a nutritionist and therefore not an authority on healthy food. The next type of logical fallacy is appeal to consequence. An appeal to consequence concludes that a premise is true or false based on whether the consequences are desirable or not. Basically, in the appeal to consequence, they want something that's really good, and so they're saying, well, this will work because, we want something so bad, or something is so horrible, so it won't be true because it's so horrible. An example of this is from the movie The Matrix. In the movie, Neo is asked whether he believes in fate, and he says that he doesn't. He is asked why, and he replies, I don't like the thought that I'm not in control. Well, just because you don't like the thought you're not in control is not a valid argument for whether to believe in fate or not. You just don't like the fact that there might not be fate. So that's an appeal to consequence. The next example is false dilemma, and you see this one a lot in advertising. A false dilemma argument falsely frames an argument as an either-or choice without allowing for additional options. So there's just this or that. So for example, is if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. Well, you could be somewhere in between outraged and not paying attention. You could be paying attention and mildly angry or happy. There's not an either-or choice there. Circular reasoning. Circular reasoning is an argument that relies on the conclusion being true for the premise to be true. So basically just restating the premise. And here's our tiger saying, I LOL at dogs wearing birthday hats because they make me laugh. Well, his reason why he laughs out loud at them is because they make him laugh. So that's just a circular reasoning, a restatement of the premise. The next example, type of fallacy we're going to talk about is straw man. A straw man argument involves misrepresenting the argument in a less favorable way to make it easier to attack. So oversimplifying is a really good way of thinking of the straw man attack. Here's our example. Mayor Jones says he wants bike lanes to be expanded because cycling is a sustainable mode of transportation. His opponent states, we should not build bike lanes because bike riders just run red lights and cause accidents. Well, that's a vast oversimplification of a problem, of a sustainable mode of transportation problem. Maybe some bike riders do run red lights, but that's not the whole issue, and he's trying to reduce the issue to be something simple like running red lights and causing accidents. The next example of our fallacy is post hoc. A post hoc argument claims that two things happen sequentially, then the first must have caused the second. I ate loaf of bread, I got a cold a few days later. I must have gotten sick from the bread I ate. This is sort of the same idea of post hoc fallacy would be when people do a sort of good luck routine before a sporting event. I wore these special socks, I played really well, so therefore the special socks must have caused me to play well. Similar to post hoc, but not exactly the same, as correlation implies causation. Post hoc, it really needs to be sequential. First I did this, then I did this. Correlation implies causation, just sort of has two things being related, not necessarily in the same order. So this fallacy assumes that just because two things are related, one must have caused the other. There's oftentimes a third variable what no one is considering, and here we have a little cartoon, and he says, I used to think correlation implied causation. Then I took a statistics class, now I don't. And she said, sounds like the class helped. And he says, well, maybe. See, he realizes that correlation does not necessarily imply causation, so he can't really say that the statistics class helped him realize that correlation implied causation. And that's basically all the fallacies we're going to talk about in this class.